Let's talk about training focuses and the intention that we bring to our training on a day-to-day basis. You see, in training, first and foremost, let's actually just lay some groundwork, lay some framework for everyone to understand what it is that we are going to kind of peel back in this conversation. So when it comes to training, when it comes to the program that you have, what are some facets of that? Some of the base facets of any good program are obviously the reps and the sets that you have, right? 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps, right? And the other facets are the intensities of those sets and reps. So is it a percentage base that you're following? Is it an RPE scale that you're following? Reps in reserve? Whatever the format is, you have some intensity focus within that program. Now, something that I am very, very, very passionate about getting individuals to start to become more present and aware with in their execution of their training and their fitness journey and routine is this concept that I've talked endlessly about, which is tension over position. Now, why does that matter so much? Why do I care so much about that? The reason is because I believe that there is an immense amount of opportunity being left on the table in most individuals' training sessions because they're getting lost in the percentages or the intensity factors of their program, thinking that if they don't hit that thing, if they don't hit that number, that percentage, well, then the training session was lost. The training session, wasn't as effective, and they're not as fit or they're not as effective coming out of it. That's just simply not the case. That's just simply not how it works. And what I want everyone to start to wrap the brain around is we know that there's a multitude of factors that affect us on a day-to-day basis that impact our state, right? Impact the way that we're going to show up, right? We know the effects of sleep and nutrition, hydration, etc. on our system, stress on our system. However, how many of you, truthfully, how many of you actually go into every training session acknowledging in your mind and verbally out loud, on paper, whatever, what your current state is and what that means for your output that day? When you show up to the gym and you see on the board that you have to find a heavy 2-rep max squat for the day, or you see it in your programming on your app, whatever the thing is, how many of you go, how was my sleep the night before? How fueled am I right now? How hydrated am I right now? How stressed am I right now? How focused am I right now? How many of you go through that checklist and truly identify those factors? Or do you simply just show up and go, I need to hit a 2-rep max today. That's what it says I need to do. So I'm just going to go do. Now, I know that the pushback I'm going to get is sometimes you just got to do it. You just got to show up and put your head down and just do the work, right? Just go, just do, right? And I get that. And I'm all for that mentality of like, sometimes you just got to put your head down and put the work in and just do. But if we're wanting to truly progress, truly see progress over the long term and be able to sustain that over the long term, we need to stop getting lost in target mentality. Because yes, there's a time and place to just do and just show up and do, and I train hard. But if you are training hard and you're doing the thing, but you're always getting lost in this target mentality of it says 2-rep max, or it says I got to do 80% and I didn't do that, so this sucks, right? Oh, I didn't do I didn't do 80%, right? I couldn't hit it. Okay, that's fine. On this day today, that's what you were capable of, was something below that. You weren't able to do 80% today. Why was that? Maybe because of these other factors that you didn't take into consideration. Maybe because you didn't acknowledge and respect the fact that you slept like shit, that you barely ate before you're leading up to your training session, that your mind is focused on, a big project that you have at work coming up. So yeah, that 80% or that 90% or whatever it was, that 2-rep max for the day wasn't going to happen because of all these other factors. And yes, you could still push through and do the thing. You could still hit a 2-rep max for the day, and maybe it's substantially less than what you could before because of all those other factors. So what? What does that mean? Right? What I see often happen is the emotion and feelings that occur afterwards when we're so target focused on stuff. And so what I want to clarify with this, and what I want to make clear, is I'm not against having targets, right? Like having a goal, having a target to go after. I'm not against that. A target is there to help you focus your direction, right? A target is there to help you focus your experience, what you're looking to do. It's not there to narrow it into that's the only thing that matters, right? A 90% in your training program for, a triple is there to focus the experience, but not narrow it so much that we disregard all other factors that are impacting our ability to show up to be able to do that 90%. So this is where, if you've listened to me for long enough, you'll hear me say constraints over outcomes. What are the constraints that you're putting in place to be able to show up and get the most effectiveness out of your training session? Because if you're just showing up and blindly going, it says 90%, so I just got to do 90%, and then maybe one of two things happens. You haven't taken into consideration any of the other factors that are affecting your body's ability to show up and produce the output that's desired. You're not taking into consideration that stuff. So maybe you can't even get close to 90%. You're building up weight, you're building up, you get to 80% and it feels like 120%. And there's no way you're hitting 90. So now you're like bummed, you're upset, you're pissed off. I didn't hit 90% today. Okay, and we'll get to that. Or you are able to get up to 90%, but it looks like absolute crap. Your pattern looks terrible. You grinded it out, and sure, you hit 90%. But what did it actually do for your overall progress and output over time? Right? If you were able to just grind out 90%, but it looked like absolute crap, was that beneficial for your progress? Was that beneficial for your output over time? Because what did you teach yourself? What did you learn? What did your body learn? And this is something that I'm probably annoying about with people, but every single training session, every single moment is an opportunity to learn, to understand something better, to understand ourselves better. However, we have to choose to be focused in on it. We have to choose to create constraints versus outcomes all the time. And this happens macro and micro respectively. Macro side of like overall constraints of like my training session, and micro as far as like constraints that are happening in the moment. To the point that like I'll be mid-workout sometimes and things are just like not working how I wanted them to. So I create a set of constraints that I'm going to follow from there on out in that workout to keep me connected effectively to an output and a result that is going to be beneficial for me long term. It's going to be beneficial for me to continue to see progress and grow versus just trying to just smash myself because it says I need to do this. I gotta hit some intensity target, and it doesn't matter how it how effective I am at doing that. I just got to get it done. What is it teaching you? Yes, you could argue that, well, it's teaching you how to push through and fight through. Absolutely. How often do you need to teach yourself that? If that's the only thing that you are constantly leaning into, is this that, oh, I fought through, and that's all you're teaching yourself how to do, what other areas are you making progress in? Are you fighting through and actually seeing progress, or are you just fighting through and constantly hitting a wall? Constantly. Yes, you're fighting through, but you're not actually progressing, right? Are you constantly fighting through at these percentages that are laid out in your program, but you're not making it look good under the right tension, right? And the right intention, the right constraints? You're not actually doing that. So then it comes to test day, and all of a sudden you're like, man, my lift just hasn't gone up for months. I haven't made any progress on it. I wonder why. Because you're not going into it with the right constraints. You're fighting through, yes. You're learning how to just grind, yes. But that is just one facet. That's why I say there is a time and place for just pushing through. Because some of us need to learn how to just push through and just grind it out. It doesn't matter how it looks, quote unquote. I believe there's safe ways to do that and unsafe ways to do that for sure. I'm not going to get into that in this episode, but if you were just constantly teaching yourself just how to grind through because that's what it says the percentages or whatnot, you're not going to make the progress that you want to make. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to work. So I want you to start considering that the targets that are laid out in your programming, the percentages, the RPEs, whatever it is, that those help you focus your experience, which is your training. They focus your experience of training, but they're not there to narrow it. You need to show up and pay attention to the other factors and ask yourself, how are those impacting me right now? What is realistic for me to hold and what constraint, right? If your programming says, I need you to be able to do a triple at 90%, let's just say, on a back squat, or let's use a deadlift. Triple at 90% on a deadlift. That is the target that is focusing your experience. That is where you're going. However, while building up to that load, that ideal load, that target, you need to have some specific constraints put in place to ensure that you are going to learn the right thing from that training experience. So those constraints can be, I need to feel tension through my hamstrings and glute throughout the entire phase of of these reps. I need to feel brace through my midline, my trunk, effectively, and I need to feel like I'm driving through the floor, pushing the ground away on every single rep. Maybe those are your 3 constraints. As you're building up load, are you able to maintain those constraints? If you are, then let's keep moving and let's see if we can get up to that 90% for that triple. But if at 85%, those constraints go out the window and you are a struggle bus getting that weight up, well, guess what? Either see if you can correct it and maintain those constraints on the next set and see if then that means you can go up, or for today, your 90% that was written now becomes 85%. Because that is where you can maintain those constraints that are going to get you the best outcome over the long term of the process and journey that you are on, versus just going to the 90%, grinding it out, and it's all low back for you. There's no midline brace. The bar was away from you. You were just yanking it off the floor. It wasn't effective. Yeah, you grinded it out. Yeah, you got it. But did you teach yourself anything outside of that? No. Did you teach your body how to effectively pull and engage through your hamstring glute structure? No. Did you brace and utilize that midline contraction and bracing effectively? No. Did you push down into the floor, driving the floor away and really using that to drive that bar up? No. So what did you learn? You learned how to just yank a bar off the floor and grind it out. Cool. You've already learned how to do that before. Is it progressing you? No, because you're not going to see the result when it comes to testing day. So allow yourself to have the targets. Allow them to focus your experience. But constraints are always greater than outcomes. Set the constraints, put them in place, and you'll see those outcomes rise higher and higher over time. Level up.